Welcome to Barbells, Business and Boobs, where we discuss navigating everyday life as lifters, business owners, and being a woman in a male-dominated industry. All right. Hi, everybody. It is the Monday after Halloween. You're probably listening to this in December by the time we release it, but very excited to have Justin O'Donnell on this morning. The three of us have actually never met in person. Oh, Christy and I have, obviously, but so we're all internet friends. So welcome, Justin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's nice to meet you.
Yes, exactly. So I was kind of talking a little bit before we hit record. Justin, I don't usually at this point in my life follow random people on social media, especially in the fitness industry, but Justin had some really good posts that resonated with me. And then when I started exploring him a little bit more, I was like, wow, he is multifaceted. Then I found out he has an MFA in creative writing. And I said to Christy, like, we need more men on the podcast. Let's get Justin on. He's a coach. So yeah, so Justin, you earned your pro card last December at Nationals, correct?
I did, yeah. So I've been competing for about 10 years. I kind of started in 2015. Chris Tuttle was my first coach, and I was grinding at it for a decade. And then finally last year at Nationals, I got the pro card in the heavyweight division. And shortly after that, I was diagnosed with a skin disease. And that kind of put the kibosh on competing until I could figure out what that was. There's no known cure for it. And long story short, I went to the dermatologist and got kind of, led around by the medical industry. And they're like, yeah, you can take a biologics injection. It'll cost you $3,000 a month. It'll maybe give you tuberculosis, but that's what we can do for you. I didn't find that acceptable. So I went into continuing education into the functional health world and tried to figure this out. And I eventually, after months of changing my diet, fixing micronutrient deficiencies, I got the disease to go into remission. And then that kind of like shifted gears for me into coaching. And I learned so much in like the functional health space, kind of like beyond bodybuilding. That opened up this like whole new world of people that are very, underserved by the medical industry, I would say. And there's almost like a parallel economy coming up beside it between like traditional medicine, coaching, functional health, solving things metabolically rather than throwing pharmaceutical band-aids on things. And so I started leaning into that with coaching, and it started to take off and started to do really well. And then I was able to actually kind of start bodybuilding again too. Like in the past few months, I started training again. I started putting on a little size again. And so now I'm thinking about maybe a pro show next year. We'll see.
Wow.
That's very ironic timing. We're having you on because
Yes.
Christy and I did. Yes, Christy, why don't you tell them what you're kind of sum up what you're going through right now?
Yeah, I just started going to like a functional doctor here in Greenville, South Carolina. And it's just interesting with the kind of overlap with like the, functional health world and bodybuilding. I've actually, going through those problems women go through with competing at a high level, trying to be super lean, trying to be super strong, beating their bodies down, low thyroid function and certain symptoms. And I reached out to someone in the bodybuilding world who markets himself as, a problem fixer. And it turned out to be more of like, still diet me down a lot too much. Plus, why don't you maybe this drug? But now that I'm, again, like you, kind of like, and also going to regular doctors who say, you're so healthy, you're so lean, it's because you lift weights, taking it, in your own hands. And like, I understand, like, kind of, looking at all the studies, researching, asking a bunch of people, it opens your eyes how the whole body is intertwined. It's not just one thing, right? So I just think that's really interesting. It's really awesome. You're able to fix yourself and take it in your own hands. And that leads you to be able to help other people. That's just really great. But I'm like, I can totally relate because I'm taking a little break from competing right now as well. So I'm like, well, maybe one day I'll be able to like feel good again and enter back into that world. But yeah, such ironic timing. We're just talking about this last episode.
Yeah, and mine is definitely not as serious as yours, Justin, but I didn't think I was gonna compete at all again because I was actually I had to go to a couple different dermatologists, and I'm actually probably suing one of them because they put me on an antifungal medication for months
Mm.
and didn't even test my skin. But yeah, long story short, I was telling Chrissy, I was like, I am so sick, but we all have to be. I was like, I am basically my own doctor, and it's trial and error sometimes, and it's expensive and a very mentally draining process sometimes. But towards the end, it's nice because we're all able to speak intelligently about our own experiences. And I didn't realize that you had only been coaching for a year, so that problem really kind of
Hmm.
like launched you into the coaching world.
I had been coaching for 7 years. I just never really advertised it. It's kind of like
Okay.
friends and
Hmm.
people from college, and I would do their diet and training, but never really like advertised it. But once I got the pro card, came out of nationals, and then had the confidence of all this education that I got in the elite coaching academy, where there's actually 130 plus functional health professional experts in there. We all kind of rely on each other, and there's also doctors in there too who review case studies. So if I can't figure something out with somebody that has, let's say, Crohn's disease, or they have a fungal infection, for instance, I'm helping a guy with, we think he has fungus in his sinuses right now. I can go to them for help. And so with that confidence, I felt comfortable to start marketing it more. And I didn't realize just how many people out there are crying for help. I've had to like kind of pump the brakes on it a little bit because I still, as you know, work a corporate job. So, I have to balance that time competing, being a father, trying to finish a book that I'm writing, and then the coaching too. I wish I could clone myself, but you guys are totally right. Like, it's so frustrating to go to the doctor and they read your blood work and you know more about blood work than they do,
Hmm.
and it's just like,
Yes.
why are we doing this?
Yes, exactly. So I didn't realize you were still working your corporate job full time.
Yep. I work full time remote. It's a corporate job, and I feel like these days actually they ask us to do like the jobs of three people. With the advent of AI, it's like do more with less, and it's challenging. It's fun. I learn a lot, and that's kind of like where my marketing background comes from, where I'm able to kind of pour that into the coaching side of things, which doesn't feel like work. So it's fun, but I basically work like 16-hour days. So
And that's exactly kind of what I really wanted to talk about because you do have so many identities. I can't even imagine. Sometimes Christy and I always vent to each other. There's good and bad days when you work for yourself, and same. I can really relate to the 16-hour days. And sometimes I really want kids someday, and I always talk about that with my partner. I'm like, how am I going to do this? And he's like, well, something's going to give. So could you just talk a little bit about? 'Cause I think you're a great example. You have clients, so people rely on you. Husband, you have a daughter. How old is she?
she's 7. She just turned
7.
7
She
in
she
August.
is adorable.
She's the
She's such a
best.
little blondie cutie. So, and then you work, with a corporate job. How I know it's probably not as good as it looks on social media. Nothing is, but how do you structure and still fit in training?
Yeah, I mean, so it's obviously bodybuilding infused a lot of discipline in my life. Like, I'm an Aries ENTJ. Like, I live very minimally. I have black t-shirts that I eliminate decisions throughout the day. I know what I'm going to eat. Like, been eating the same thing for years, right? So all that stuff, kind of the domino effect of that, frees up time elsewhere. Being very disciplined with how much time I spend on my phone. I use like a screen monitor, time. It tells me how many hours I've been looking at my screen, type of thing. But I'm really, really big into paying yourself first in the beginning of the day for you. Like, whatever it is that you really want to work on for you has to come first. It's kind of like, when you're on the airplane, you have to put the mask on for yourself first, or else you're going to run out of oxygen trying to help other people. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? So, bodybuilding, when I first started it, I used to like go train early in the morning and do my cardio early in the morning. When I was going through my master's program, I would wake up at 3 and I would write in the morning, and just get it done. Because as you guys know, when you go throughout your day, everything wants to take little bites out of you.
Hmm.
And especially if you're a coach, right? You're living in service to others, and you have to give of yourself pretty much all day, to show up for your clients and provide value for them. It's hard to show up for yourself when you've been doing that all day. And then it's even harder to do that at the end of the day. So that's why that beginning part of the day is super sacred, I think. And then you get it done, and then at the end of the day, you can spend more time with family or friends or whatever. And like the 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 part of this that's always bothered me in the bodybuilding world is how people are so like narrowed in on it. Like, I'm just an athlete and that's like all I care about. I don't know how it is for most men, but I'm a man who's like really struggled with meaning. And like, I was raised very religious. I grew up Christian, kind of fundamentalist, and went to Christian high school, went to Christian college, had like a crisis of faith throughout that time, had like very jaded views for a long time, had to like work that out. My first book is actually like the fiction novel I wrote is like just all of my philosophical issues just thrown into like a speculative apocalyptic thriller where I just like put this character through it and worked out issues.
I'll link that in the description. Failed
Okay.
states on Amazon, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah, I wrote that 10 years ago. So everybody, don't judge me too hard on it, but
no, no.
it's not for the faint of heart. It's a pretty intense, violent book. It's pretty charged.
Okay.
I like
But
that.
but the finding meaning in life, and like I go back to this idea of consumption versus creation. And like, we basically have decisions
Hmm.
about that all day, every day. There's something vying for our attention that we consume, whether it's on our
Hmm.
phone, whether it's watching television, whether it's, I don't know, looking at an advertisement or
Hmm.
whatever, or it's people texting you, you're consuming the communication, or whatever it is, their thoughts, reading the newspaper, watching the news, that's all consumption. If you can create before you consume, it'll
Hmm.
be less molested, I guess, by outside influences. And I read this book in my MFA. It was called From Where You Dream. And the process of writing was kind of like the thesis of waking up, and like, before you look at your phone, before you let any outside information in, you like go right to your computer or your
Hmm.
notepad, and you just write. And like, your subconscious is very fresh. That act of creation first almost always comes across as more authentic. And
Hmm.
then once that's done, then you can go consume.
Hmm.
And then I'm leading to a point with this. Bodybuilding for me was always like an act of creation. It wasn't just like this competitive sport. It was like, I'm creating a physique. I'm creating a stimulus in the gym. How can I create the coolest training program? And it's not just like mindless. It's kind of like this soulful activity. And there's something
Hmm.
about the repetition of eating the meals and like almost having like that monkish dedication to something, going to the gym and getting better, and the self-improvement. That's an act of creation. And I think writing is the synthesis form of thought, creating thought and
Hmm.
putting it on paper. That's also an act of creation. So like, all of these things for me were always kind of like a search for meaning because I feel like there's a lot of meaninglessness, whether it's on social media, whether it's kind of like the American lifestyle. We're all kind of like looking for meaning sometime. And I think a lot of bodybuilders or athletes are kind of drawn to it because it does give them meaning. Like, we can go spin our wheels at work and make money to pay for an apartment or
Hmm.
pay for a mortgage for 40 years, but like, we're not taking it with us. And, 50 years after we're gone, no one's going to remember it anyway. But
Hmm.
like, what you write, the poetry that you post, someone else can read that 100 years from now and get something from your act of creation rather than your act of consumption. Bodybuilding, they could look at your photos. Like, when the 80s guys, are dead in 30 years, their photos are still going to be there. That artwork is still going to be there. People are going to remember it. So for me, that's kind of like what it was always about. And then lastly, you mentioned having children. I always kind of get sad when people say they don't want to have kids, or they kind of like, brush it off as like, oh, that's not for me, or they poo poo it. And it's like, we didn't want to have kids. Actually, it was like kind of a surprise. But nothing changed me faster or more intensely than having a child. And talk about like adding meaning to life, like having this little soul that you're responsible for and taking care of. And like, that is the ultimate act of creation, right? You're like literally raising a life. And finding meaning as a father and as a man for that. That's kind of like the ultimate, the ultimate moment in that whole progression that I'm describing. And so like, when you view everything in that light, it's kind of easy to carve out the time to do it and to say no to the things that aren't like, hell yes, this is an act of creation, or this is something very important to me. It's like when you have that lens in life, like, it's kind of easy to just like put the other stuff aside and have those things that are very important to you that you focus on.
Yeah.
I hope that
Wow.
answered it.
That was like, that hit so hard for me in so many different ways for, um, I related but also like need to hear that. I feel like as a creative person too, um, the most frustrating part is when you start to consume more than you create. I can feel it kind of like crushing my soul. And, just for one example is like social media with that addictive kind of like, I'm going to pick up my phone and look that I can feel every day. And I do think of that every day. It's like, how much more time could I be, creating? But as part of your coaching career, do you put that much emphasis on like your social media, you know?
Now I do now, probably
Mm-hmm.
more so than ever. And I mean, Christy, you might be able to relate to this, but like, as you went to school for graphic design, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now
Yeah.
you have all these artificial intelligence tools that can
Yes.
either like
Mm-hmm.
take the joy of creation out of it, or make it faster.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your process is a lot quicker. Like you can, you know, remember in the past when you had to knock out a background and how you'd have to sit there with the
Mm-hmm.
brush and like
You had to do
do it.
it.
Yeah, now you just click a button and it's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, that saved me 30 minutes, right? You know, I always wonder about like the soulfulness, or if I'm losing my creative edge if I'm using
Mm-hmm.
AI. So I try to like not be too lazy with it. But I'll say that nowadays it's like easier than ever to like be creative, because you could just do things a lot
Mm-hmm.
faster and it's not so tedious. And I find that I have more fun now making content than I did in the past. And like, I don't enjoy social media that much. Like I like to put you get. I mean, I think Brittany knows I like to post training. Like training is kind of my thing, but like
Mm-hmm.
it's not really like coaching content, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So the way I try to focus on content now is like, what is something high value that I can create that will be helpful to at least somebody? And that's kind of like actually like a creative writing trick. Like you cannot write to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like my gothic vampire novel is not going to be super interesting to certain demographics. However, if you can like envision your like key person that you really want to get that across to and like really help that person, when it's like a piece of content like coaching content, like iron deficiency or something, most people are going to glaze right over it and you might get 12 likes or whatever. But the one person that's having trouble with iron absorption and is not getting answers from the doctor messages you, and you do a call, and next thing you know they signed a 6-month contract, just because you try to put something high value out there for somebody, that's something that you learned, that you found interesting, right? And they found value in it. And so if you're putting out value into the
Mm-hmm.
world, I think that that comes back to you all the time. And that's like, I feel like that's a lesson I literally learned this year. I'm 34, and it's just funny. I read this book called Finding Meaning in the Second Half of Life. I read that this year, and I feel like I'm having like all these epiphanies at age 34. My social media content in the past, I felt like was so self-serving, or just like
Mm-hmm.
training bodybuilding stuff, and like I think my followers have had to acclimate to the shift in content, because it's very coaching, you know, nutrition, all that kind of like blood work stuff. And it's not as exciting as like, you know, the 280-pound bodybuilder posing in the little trunks and stuff, you know, which they're used to for the past 10 years. So that shift has been, you know, a little scary. I didn't know how people would, you know, view that, but I've had a lot of fun adding value. It kind of just makes it just like kind of exciting to wake up in the morning and think like, okay, how can I make someone's day better by giving them something that they can learn and use to make their life better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, you're doing a good job. And everything you said was like, I'm taking notes on it because same. Yeah. I'll just briefly share this. So, like last summer, I was in the process of writing a book. I kind of did what you did, where every morning I would go for a walk. My phone is permanently on do not disturb because I hate being interrupted. And then I would write. I actually have a timer right here. It's sacred to me. It's
Ah.
15 minutes. So I will flip it over, and no matter what, every single day I wrote for 15 minutes. And my book was actually kind of about how odd social media is and becoming like a personality on it, and how, you know, amazing pros in some ways, so many people I've met, so many opportunities, but I feel like it's kind of made me a little weird, and it's something I'm always working on because people think they know you, and I just don't really like the attention sometimes, and it's just been really hard. Anyways, long story short, my Google Drive crashed and I lost that book, and it was like
What?
the biggest heartbreak of my life.
No.
So it's okay though. I kind of looked at it like, I was really sad. I was actually like a month out too, so I was trying not to think about it because I was like, I don't need any more cortisol raises. But just now I'm kind of at a place where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to start creating like that again, and I'll make it better, because it's just, even if it never goes anywhere for me, just like you said with that one post that can affect someone,
Hmm.
it's like the next generation needs to know this, because I fear for the next generation, because they're going to be growing up and be like on TikTok at like 10 years old and creating. So I just want them to kind of, because mentally, physically I'm always healthy, but mentally sometimes I go up and down. And a lot of that is, I noticed in 2020 when I left my corporate job and started strictly doing social media, I became kind of almost weird, because I was such an in-person person,
Hmm.
an extrovert, and now I'm almost an introvert. Like I noticed, like Chrissy and I have done
Mhm.
ESPN and stuff together, and that gives me so much energy. But then after, I feel like I'm kind of weird for a few days where I just need to be alone. So I really like what you said about being sacred, with
I
your
can't believe
time.
you lost the book. That's like, so that's happened to me
Mhm.
before. I've always likened it to like when you're writing something, it's like it's like catching like unique butterflies with a net, and you're like, oh, that's a good sentence. That's a
Yeah.
great sentence. And then when you lose the file, it's like you just threw your net into the wind and it's gone, and you're never going to get those
Yeah.
butterflies. But you'll catch new butterflies.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, now I'm like, all right, you're going to be my like mid 30s life crisis guru right now. But
Yeah,
like
we're all the
asking
same
these
age.
questions. Yeah. So when it comes to creating, like, okay, so you have all these, you have like, your creation in bodybuilding, you're creating content for, to reach new clients and add value in that educational way. You're writing your book, and we can access your book. And I know you wrote that like for yourself, your own, probably like,
Therapy.
fun and process. You enjoyed it. But like, is there anything that you keep sacred that you create for yourself? Because like, there's only so much time in the day, and it seems like you're creating for a lot of things. Is that bodybuilding, or do you have anything else that you just do on your own, just for you, that's not monetized, that's not being shown to anyone? Because I think about this by myself all the time. I'm like, I need to like do pottery by myself or something, you
Same.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So what else do I do? Occasionally I journal. I don't do it as often as I
Hmm.
can. And again, that winds up just being like therapeutic word vomit.
Hmm.
Um, and another thing I used to do is I used to online role play actually. And that was like a super fun outlet with me, but it would be collaborative with other people. And then the other thing I do is I sometimes share and I sometimes do is I write poetry. And I think Brittany's seen a few of those, but I have them
Yeah.
kind of way down on my Instagram. I used to be pretty heavily into it. I don't share it as much anymore, but those are probably the main things that I do. Um, and then me and my daughter actually kind of have this little. Well, we were doing it for a while. We would go to this lounge and we would paint together, and I haven't painted since I was a little kid, so I'm kind of like rediscovering it with her, and that's been super fun. But the poetry, like the nice thing about poetry is it doesn't take a lot of time, especially if something kind of hits you. You can say something very profound in like a few short words and just kind of like leave it and not mess with it. That's why I like doing that, because you could do it in 5 minutes. Whereas if you're trying to write like a short story, it's going to take a long time. If you're trying to write a book, it's going to take forever.
Hmm.
But poetry, you can just kind of just write down on the paper pretty quickly and get it out. So it's if you never tried it, like now, especially now with AI, like it can teach you how to do it, and you can look up. One of my favorite things to do actually is to find a poem that you really love, that just like is really powerful to you, and just copy the structure like completely, even the cadence, everything, and then just use your own nouns and verbs, and look around or use things from your life and just kind of fuse it together
Yeah.
and make it your own. That's a really fun exercise to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
I
really good exercise.
Yeah, I think what people can take from this too is like you turned pro. You were dedicating your life, a big chunk of your life for 10 years to become a professional bodybuilder. You did it, but you doesn't seem like it's your full on identity. You have all these other things you do and stuff like that. So I know we're talking before we start recording about how a lot of people, do that. Can you talk to us a little bit you know, how you've approached bodybuilding that way and identity and
Yeah, you have to be a little bit obsessed to turn a professional bodybuilder. And I mean, these days people say it's way easier than ever to turn pro, and I'm like, men's open heavyweight is still pretty hard. Like nationals is still pretty tough, and like I trained extremely hard for a long time. I would say I was like probably like one of the strongest guys in the amateur ranks for a long time. I was doing crazy stuff when I was like at my peak. And like, yeah, you got to be a little crazy and obsessed to do it. But again, like if you make that your only identity, like that rug can get ripped out of your feet so fast. It takes one tweak in the gym, one torn ACL, one blown out shoulder, one bad set of blood work to come back, or what happened to me, which was the skin disease diagnosis. And it was like I thought I was going to go right into a pro career. Steve Weinberger was like, "Hey, you should do New York Pro next year," and that all stopped immediately. And I did get very depressed. I had never had experienced depression before in my life, and I have always kind of looked at depression as this thing like, why don't you guys just pull yourself up by your boots? Like everybody has tough days, but like once you've actually experienced real depression, you're like, okay, I get it, And I think men are I can relate to men, and I know what it feels like to get to be into your 30s and you have this identity, that you have this thing that you're known for, and you've made it such a part of your life. And like bodybuilding is one of those things where it's so visible. Like when you go to work, like everybody knows you as that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
They make comments about your body, they make comments about what you're eating, and you can lean into that identity a lot. But if you make it like all you care about and all you think about, and the only thing that like gives you happiness, you're setting yourself up for a really, really tough time when it's taken away from you. I've had a lot of long talks with a very close friend of mine, Chris Tuttle, he's a high level coach. He had some guys in the Olympia recently, and he turned pro similar around the age I did. He had some leg injuries, and he can only compete like once or twice in the pro ranks, and then that got taken from him basically. And he was also really into motorsports. He, because of his injuries, he couldn't do that anymore. So like all of his like physical outlets were taken from him, and he struggled with it, like depression and stuff, and it was really tough for him for a while. And so like he kind of always came alongside me when I was struggling with it, and I would just say to guys that who have possibly made it their only outlet or whatever, their identity, there are people that you can talk to that may have done the same thing that can help you find perspective after it or during it. That's why I think it's super important to find some other little things that give you that act of soulful creation, whatever it is. Like I think we could all find that in lots of different things, and it's not even, it has to be something artistic. It could be like gardening, or like I'm really into like detailing my car, or like tweaking my car out, or something like that. Like other
Mm-hmm.
hobbies, other things that like bring you happiness. And like it's kind of like the same thing with relationships. And this is also something that I think we all learn as we get a little bit older. You can't allow your happiness to be dependent on another person, like entirely. Because again, when you run into problems with a relationship or a marriage, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, whatever, and all of your happiness is dependent on that person, number one, it's way too much pressure on that person, because they're not perfect and they're going to make mistakes, and there's going to be ripples in the relationship. It might not last forever. They could have a medical, tragedy or whatever, right? It could end at any moment, and you don't want to end yourself over that, over that relationship. You have to have other things that kind of give you happiness. And again, like that's why like having a child was like, oh my gosh, such an important thing to me, because like, yeah, maybe bodybuilding could get taken from me, or something else, but like, damn, I have her, that's an amazing identity to have. So like something like that obviously helps a lot, right? So finding those other things, that's, I think bodybuilding can only be one cylinder in the engine. You have to have other cylinders that are driving your engine.
Yeah, I know. I love that you said that. And there's a book I always recommend to people, because a lot of people will come to me and be like, "How do you deal with leaving the sport?" Because I was pretty open about when I had moved cross country a couple times, and a strongman was kind of like, I walked away, but it was also kind of taken from me just due to injuries. And I went into bodybuilding with a mindset like, I am not going to become obsessed with this. I am not going to treat it like strongman, and I've done a pretty good job. of balancing it. Sometimes I still fight with like my ego and
Hmm.
wanting to be the best in the world. And I'm like, no, Brittany, this is a different phase in your life. You're not in your 20s, you're in your 30s, you have more responsibilities. So the second mountain is something I try to read it once a year. And it just kind of reminds you that like the first mountain in life is supposed to be egotistical. You're supposed to
Yeah.
achieve. That's what the culture preaches. You know, the more you can achieve, the more successful you are. Keeping up with the Jones kind of mentality. And then the second mountain, some people unfortunately
Never get
never
there.
reach that.
Yeah.
Yes, and you obviously have, so it's great to hear because like I said, Christy and I go back and forth all the time. And something that happens to us is like I said the other day, I'm like, I'm going to enjoy those small moments where life is good and calm because now I know like it's always going to be crazy, especially when other people rely on you. When you're a
Hmm.
coach and you're a coach that cares, because we know that there are some not so great coaches in the industry, but it does kind of drain you. And that kind of leads me to my next question is now that you're coaching, how do you deal with because you care when there's a client like you're I almost describe it like yes you're a coach but you're also a therapist because your job is to listen to those people and just people don't care how much you know, they usually care how much you care about them. So how do you deal with and like how do you say no or how do you set those boundaries because you're only a year into coaching like full time more or less. I know you were doing it before but now that it is part of your job and your income, I struggled the most for the first 3 years. Like I would have my phone and WhatsApp. And if someone was on a weight cut, I'd set an alarm for 2 a.m., make sure I answered. Like I couldn't be in a relationship. It was just me and my dog like for years because I was like, well, I did this to myself. Uh, you know, so how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So I'm learning. I don't think that as a coach, you're ever gonna, regret caring too much. I was super blessed to have coaches that cared immensely. Like I always put potential clients in. I think of them when I was 23 or whenever I got into bodybuilding and like how lucky I was to have Chris Tuttle as my coach. Like I dodged so many bullets, right? And had a guy who like really cared for me, and he would answer emails anytime I needed to call him and stuff. And like at probably great expense to himself, like his own sanity, sure. Right. And, you know, I, I kind of be like, okay, like what would Tuttle do, or what would John Meadows do? John was another one of my coaches.
Oh, I didn't know
That
that.
Yeah, yeah. So he was
Cool.
writing my training for nationals the year he died. He had emailed me a couple of days before. And, ugh, horrible. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, what would John do, right? And like that giving mentality is, number one, the world needs more of it. I kind of view it as a calling. It's like I kind of got like how I got into bodybuilding. It's just like all kind of strange how it all happened. And it's like, this is my tribe. And I feel like taking care of my tribe is kind of like a life calling. So there's that, but also you have to balance it with people that just want like not to pay, or they just want to ask you questions and not pay. Right. So like, that's a serious boundary that you need to set, like answering questions and helping people, but also like respecting your own time. And like, boundaries can be a gift. They don't need to be coming across as insulting. Like, hey, 9 to 5 is when you can text me. If you want to be able to get me on the weekends, here's a package that's a little more expensive. And I have a few people that do that, right? Or, here's my contest prep package where, we're going to be talking a lot, but like I kind of tier it and they can pay for more or less, right? So that's kind of like practically how I go about it. And then just actually maintaining the boundaries, which is tough because when you really care, people are going to test your boundaries. And I kind of lean into like, you're never going to regret caring. But I think as soon as it starts like affecting your own relationships and your own life, that's when you have to kind of like be a little bit more adamant. And, again, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yeah, I really like that analogy. That's really I didn't know that about John Meadows. John Meadows is actually the whole reason why I decided to
Oh,
leave my corporate job. He was a
oh,
really good mentor to me. Yeah, so um it was so odd. I remember, the day he passed away too, not to go on a tangent, but I remember, so he was one of my heroes and I texted him that Friday. So he passed away. I found out Sunday morning. That Friday, Justin Randall and I had done a photo shoot together
hmm.
for Granite. Justin's a good friend of mine.
Yeah,
And
I
I
know
texted
Justin.
John. Yeah, I texted John. I was like, Justin, I just wanted to say thank you so much. We feel so fortunate to be able to do this. And like, I can't believe I'm going to do my first bodybuilding show and I quit my job and all this stuff. And then I remember, yeah, he passed away and it was just so sudden and crazy. And then a couple months later, there was this strength guy named Bud Jeffries. I don't know if you ever have seen him. He lived in Florida. He would do like
Hmm.
crazy feats of strength, like bending metal and
Mhm.
just nuts. He was just nuts. And I remember I said the same thing to him because I bought his strength book when I was maybe in like just graduated college and I was reading about some of his philosophies and his wife and his kid. They were awesome. And I said the same thing to him because my roommate, Felicia, and I were obsessed with him. And we said, thank you for, just being who you are on the internet and doing what you do for kids. And then he passed away too. So it's always, yeah, but that was just a little tangent. Sorry to go on, but I think it's important in the fitness industry and anything. It's like, we're all so connected. You said tribe. I think that's a really good way to look at it. And it helps me too. Like, because I went from having 30 clients to now I only have 15 and it feels so much more manageable because something I do when you have other responsibilities, creating content, life stuff, trying to be creative, I try to when I'm answering a client be like, okay, maybe this is the only attention that they're going to get for the day and it's about their bodies. So I have to give it 100%. That's something
Mhm.
that if I do that, it's almost like a premeditation thing. Like before I do client
Presence.
check-ins,
Yeah.
I need to have total focus and make sure I'm there. So that's
Yep.
good to hear that because I feel like some people don't struggle with it. Like Justin Randall is a great example. He can be like, he's like a multitasker. I'm not like that. He can be working out doing this and then answer a client too. And sometimes like we trained together for a while. I had to check him. I'd be like, dude, I need you to breathe right now. You're gonna leave your phone over there. And he'd be like,
Yeah.
thank you, Brittany. And I'm like, yeah. So it's just important to check people because I do think that coaching is kind of there's people that are ER nurses and crazy stuff, but it's one of the harder jobs in this age.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you and I went back and forth about something I had posted. It was kind of like this person is trusting you with their health, their future, their goals, their life dreams, whatever. They're paying you in exchange to do it. The least you can do is just be present for 5 to 10 minutes with their check-in, look at their photos and not at your phone, and give them your undivided attention into that check-in. And if you just like put that energy into the
Hmm.
check-in, it's going to come out in how they receive it. Like energy is real, and clients are going to detect it. And just like doing that, like you said, that little mental exercise and like practicing presence goes a long way, I think. I'm going
Yeah.
to check my students here.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and it all goes back to like boundaries and also like making your own schedule and knowing what's works for you. Because I'm like Brittany, and like I can't just be multitasking around. Like I know what days or what times I'm like at my computer, open my WhatsApp. I am there for my clients. I'm giving them all the value, and I don't feel as bad if let's say at 10 p.m. someone's messaging me on WhatsApp because I know the next day I'm going to give them really good attention during my work hours, right? Like so that kind of relieves that guilt and that anxiety because I can do what I can do and then I can give them my best attention. So I think it really just, I guess I do envy people that can just like respond all day and everything, but um, I'm not that person at all.
Clients will adapt to the systems that you develop.
Yes.
It's kind of that habitual James
Right.
Clear, like you're only going to be as good as your system is. And so
Right.
if you have a good system and they get used to it, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to respect it as long as,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're taking that time and like giving them that real
Yeah.
attention. If it's a little bit of a longer check-in, you guys know what it's like. It's like, you're like, hey, check in Friday morning, please, because you're going to probably work all Friday on the
Mm-hmm.
check-ins. And then the check-in rolls in at like 11 p.m. or like Saturday
Right.
morning at 7. It's like,
So I make clients something I started implementing about 2 years ago was I have an automatic response on WhatsApp. So when they first reach out, that says my hours. And if it's an emergency, they need to email me. And then I also do something where I make them sign a coaching agreement and I give them, we go over their check-in day on their onboarding. If they don't give me their check-in by 1 p.m. PST on their check-in day, I cannot guarantee a 24-hour response. And that was the hardest thing for me to implement because it would almost give me anxiety because I'm thinking like, okay, what happened? Like it's a little easier when it's a lifestyle client, when it's a competitor or something, I get a little more nervous, but that has helped me a lot. But it's still, I'll find myself like, I'll see their email and I'm like, hey, I know they're 4 hours late. I'm going to put it off and answer it when I can. I'm not staying up till 1 a.m. anymore, breaking my sleep schedule to answer someone else. Like you said, those boundaries. And Christy and I are both people pleasers, and that took me so many years to learn to put myself first. And it's been great, but it's still hard.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you ever feel pressure to pick one thing, like you're balancing the corporate job and coaching?
No, I don't try to separate like who I am. It's like who I am is who I am, and what I like is what I like, and what I want to do is what I want to do. I kind of like, you know, I I like my corporate job. I like aspects of it. I like the people I work with. I like the money. I like the coaching. It's kind of like the art of detachment a little bit. I don't get too attached to one thing and feel like I have to burn my ships and go all in with coaching and make it or break it. Like if you're really good at something and you really love something, it's gonna grow regardless. I think at some point I will have to face that though. If it keeps growing and I'm working 16-hour days and I have 75 clients or whatever, and I can't do everything all the time, and like there comes a point where I can't show up for my corporate job adequately enough or my clients, and then it's like, yeah, then I gotta pick. But also in this day and age, I'm kind of like things do be expensive, and a lot of us have side
Yeah.
hustles or multiple jobs and stuff, and that's kind of like the name of the game these days. So but like I used to have dreams of just being a writer and like getting paid to like just write fiction. I don't know where I thought I was going to make money doing that, because there's, trust me, there's no money in that. You have to really love writing to do that. But I used to have these like pressure ideas of like buying a cabin in the woods and being like this hermit and like writing the next great trilogy or something and getting a movie deal and all this stuff. I actually did get a movie deal. I got a fake scam movie deal that cost me a lot of money, and I got
Oh no.
scammed and I got interviewed by the FBI because of it. And there's this whole article that came out, and I got interviewed by the Wall Street Journal and all that stuff. So I got pretty soured by the publishing industry after that. But yeah,
Wow.
no pressure to choose something. I kind of like detach a little bit from the pressure, and it's kind of like that thing with like, have you guys ever noticed this? Like with training and bodybuilding or whatever sport you're doing, the kind of like less neurotic you are about it and like less pressure you put on yourself, the better you do. And
Yes.
like it's more fun and it's just like kind of goes a little smoother. That's kind of how I like approach the multifaceted thing. It's like I'm not going to pressure myself to do something that I want to do or not want to do. Like for instance, lately I haven't been writing as much because the coaching's been so busy and stuff. But if I was just going to like force the writing, it probably wouldn't be that good. And I noticed kind of like when I like stop pressuring myself and like let it come and detach a little, then I can like get back into my habit and stuff like that. But there's the other side of it. It's like if you don't sit in the chair and write every day, you're not going to write. If you don't go to the gym every day and like put yourself in the position to do the thing that you want to do, you're not going to do it. You're not like going to magically become a millionaire if you don't think about or put yourself in a position to make money, or you don't work, right? So you do have to like sit in the chair and do the thing that you want to do. But like every time I've tried to like really force something hard, it's always backfired. So
It's good to hear you say that because I feel like a lot of men just don't always admit that you need something, you got to be a little more lax with some things. And that's helped me. Christine, I talk about this all the time. That's really helped me because I'm such like, it comes from insecurity. It's rooted in insecurity. I'm such an overachiever that sometimes like I'll write down a goal, whether it be athletic, career, money in the bank that I want to see, or even writing. Like I had such a strict goal with myself, and then it creates like this pressure. And if I mess up on something one day, it just creates like this ongoing, like I failed myself and I'm mad. And it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because I feel like as coaches, people do look up to us for all we can do,
yeah,
but there's also a human side to it too. And that's something with this podcast that was really important to me and Christy, was to get these people that we look at them one way. We see this presence that they create on social media. Some of it, of course, is real, but some of it, it's like you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know what they're fighting, what their relationship is like, what they're struggling with. So that's something that's really important to me, just being human, because it's hard to hard to see these days. But no, that's really cool to hear that you're doing all that. And again, that's helpful reminder to myself that like you're a writer and like even you put it on the side, because same sometimes it's, and my partner always, he's a really good like person to me in terms of like making sure I don't work from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. every single day because I'll run myself into the ground. So
The accountability. So there are some things that I do to kind of like hold myself accountable, I guess you would say. And again, kind of like Christy with the systems thing. I have an Excel sheet, and it's a reading log and a writing log. And basically, like historically, every time I've done really well with writing, I'm reading something every day and I'm writing something every day. And I would just write down the word count, and I would write down the pages that I read. And even if it was just like 10 words and one page, I would mark the day as green. And then like my goal was always to just have green days. And if I had a red day, never to have 2 red days in a row. Right. And so that's another James Clear habits thing. And when you do that, like you definitely form the habit, and you can just see it pile up over the year. The moment I miss 2 days, every time I just fall off the wagon with the writing. So like it's kind of a very similar thing with coaching, right? So like how often does a client, they're like checking in, they're doing good, and then like one week is kind of they're kind of like missing it, and then the next week you don't hear from them, and then before you know it, it's been 6 weeks, it's been 2 months, and they just fell off, right? Or it's this idea like during Christmas. I posted about this today. Like during it's a very fixed mindset, and like we all have to be careful of it. But like Christmas time, people are on their diet. They eat a cookie, and it's like, oh no, I blew my diet. Might as well have 7 more cookies, right? It's kind of like the reverse of that. Like just no, just today's a red day. Make tomorrow a green day. Just get back on it. So I always try to like do something like that to like, I used to like have it printed on my wall, and I would mark it down and stuff like that. But like, again, you won't write the book if you're not like having some kind of accountability like that. But again, like if you have something going on in your life and you're not creative, you're not feeling creative, like people are going to tell when you try to like share it, and then it's going to kind of defeat its purpose. So.
yeah, absolutely. So how do you, okay, so I know everything you kind of do. Do you have, so I think you go for walks in the morning. Can you just kind of walk us through like a typical day right now with timelines since you're so structured?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in circadian rhythm. So, and I'm a coffee drinker, but I've recently learned about proper electrolyte balance. And if you drink too much coffee, you deplete too much magnesium. It's better to replenish your magnesium before you drink coffee. So I wake up, I have water, electrolytes, I brew my coffee, I go out for a walk, 20 minutes roughly, sometimes more, try to get sunlight directly into my eyes, and that helps with your circadian rhythm and cortisol in the morning. You want to get to lift. Andrew Huberman talks all about that stuff.
Yeah,
And
putting
then,
off the adenosine too before.
yep.
I used to drink coffee first thing, and then the past couple of years, I'm like, okay, let's wait an hour or two.
Yeah, and I still break that rule all the time. Like sometimes I wake up too early and it's dark out and I don't want to go outside, but I want my coffee. So it's like in a perfect world, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
And then like ideally, I either read something or I write something. I have like the Daily Stoic. I used to read that, or I would read like a fiction book that's similar to something that I want to write to get good ideas and like get scene ideas from. And then I would usually try to do like the little Pomodoro timer where I do like 25-minute like writing session and just see what I could do. And usually I could hit my writing goal for the day before that. More lately, I've been doing content instead. So I was like, I'll write something for my Instagram or try to get a post ready for today, get that all set before I have to go, either take my daughter to school or start my day job, my work job. And then client stuff I usually say for the evening or the weekends. And then like training has been so easy to fit into my life. I've just 5 times a week, hour and a half. I've been doing the same exercises for years. I don't even have to think about it. The diet, like I said, it's easy. And then like I believe really eliminating as many decisions throughout the day, like what you're going to wear, like t-shirts or whatever, make girls have it harder. I know you guys have to figure out your outfits and all that stuff, but like, eliminating the decision fatigue makes like that other stuff easier. Cause like, I just have to like really put my thinking cap on for what I'm going to write in the morning. And then like when I go to work, I'm going to do my creative tasks first. And then I'm going to save all my like admin tasks for when I'm tired, and kind of like get as much done in the beginning part of the day. And then like as the burner starts to fade, do like the the junkier work, towards the end of the day. And then like the physical activity I save after work. So that's that's generally how I do it. If you try to save the stuff for you for the end of the day, it's probably not going to happen. Just like never does. Unless you're a night owl or something, it's just never worked for me.
100%. Yeah, I was just listening to a podcast too about that. Like all your easy admin work, like running errands or answering emails or something, those can bite up so much time if you let them. So it's like save them for when you don't have brain power. So do the creative, do the hard. You're supposed to do the hardest thing first. So people need to pick what that is for them.
It's the big rocks, right? So have you ever done that like little corporate game where you have to like put the big rock in first and then the little rocks will fit? You could just fit them in. Yeah. So like pick your big rock for the day, whatever it is, like your personal big rock and then your work big rock, and like do them first. Take the bite out of the day while you can, and then you can sprinkle in all the little things after. It's kind of how I picture it.
Okay, I just have a couple. I know we said 45 minutes. It's been 50, but just a couple questions. Okay. And Chrissy, feel free to interject. I think I know the answer to this based on what you said, but what was harder, writing your first book or certain bodybuilding preps?
Well, one of them you feel like dying. Or you feel like you're in the process of dying. Which prep? No. I would say like as far as like length of time and how much I agonized over it, probably the book, honestly. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought your answer would be.
And more scary, I think, to like send it out into the world too. Than I'd rather get on stage in a bunch of in trunks and half naked in front of the world than like expose my like heart, in my book. So the book's harder for sure.
Okay. All right. You could only do one lift for the rest of your life. What is it and why?
Incline barbell bench press.
Even if it falls down, if you fail it?
Yes. Yeah, that's my favorite exercise, all time. I did 500 pounds on it before, and I've always wanted. So like when I got into bodybuilding, I was kind of like a power lifter, and I was pretty strong. And then like my coaches were like, all right, stop with the powerlifting. You're going to tear your pec or whatever. But like, I've always wanted to like see what I could do, because I've kind of have this like, high level strength for a bodybuilder. And I feel like, man, I kind of miss my calling with like powerlifting and strongman. But yeah, I would just do that forever.
Yeah.
Incline
I just was lurking your Instagram page, and you recently made a post about the health benefits of kiwis, eating them before bed. And I eat them every morning, actually just to help me poop. So
they do help with that.
But my question with this is a new food for me.
Yeah.
And my question for you is kiwi with the skin on or off?
Oh, you can have it on. Yeah, that'll help.
I know, but for you personally, because some people get the ick out of that. This is more like a silly question, not like a scientific one. Like,
yeah, I think I prefer it with the skin on, actually.
I do too. It surprised me.
It's actually kind of like too slimy without the skin. You know how like in the supermarket when they have it kind of pre-cut up and it's like in with the other fruit and there's no skin on that? It's like kind of gross like that, honestly.
Yeah.
And when it has the fiber around it, it kind of holds it together and it gives it a little more crunch. So yeah, definitely team
yeah,
skin.
I was surprised. I was like, this is disgusting. It's like a fuzzy little thing. And it's good. It's kind of like apple. It kind of tastes like apple skin.
Yep.
So yeah, we're gross. We like the kiwi skin. Brittany, have you ever eaten it with skin?
No, but it's funny. I'm so glad you brought that up because I forgot. So literally, I think it was last Thursday. I do my Costco big order for like meat and stuff, and then I get fruit and all that like once a week. And you had put that post up, and I always struggle with like sleep anyways, and I'm always trying like natural things. So I was like, okay, I'm trying to fit in more macronutrients now that I'm not on like a strict bodybuilding diet. And kind of like you, Justin, it is so much easier for me. Like I'm one of those weirdos, like I can eat the same thing every day and I love it. So I'm trying to switch out. Like I usually have pineapple, but I was like, I'll try kiwi. So I went to the store and they didn't have any. I was super bummed because I want to try it, but it's just funny that like it goes to show you like socially you are influencing people even if you don't think you are, because sometimes you're making content and you're like, who the hell gives a shit? But Christy and I clearly did care. So I'm gonna send you guys a video when I eat my kiwi, and I am gonna eat it with the skin on because I don't like to waste. I'm Italian, I grew up poor, so I don't waste anything.
There you go. Yeah, tag me in that. I want to see that. That's funny. You
I
know, and
will.
I learned that from my client. So she was like, "Hey, I eat kiwis before bed. It helps me go to sleep." And I was like, "Huh?" And I like Googled it and I found all these
Hmm.
studies about it. And I was like, "Whoa!" And then so I have all these like postmenopausal women that are
Hmm.
like struggling sleeping and they need their progesterone fixed. That's a whole nother story. But what I've started doing is giving them kiwis before bed, and they're like sleeping a little better. So it's kind of like
Hmm.
spreading. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
I posted on
I'll
my
definitely
story
try
me
that.
eating it with the skin on. People were grossed out. They were said, go to jail. So you might get some haters, but apparently it's controversial. But
That's funny.
It's a good controversial thing, better than other things
mhm.
people are fighting about on the internet these days. But
Yes.
yeah, so if anyone listened to this episode in full, which hopefully you did, I hope that they kind of ask themselves the question of what is something that you want to do that's within you that you're not doing yet, whether that be painting, writing, coloring, playing a video game, just something that might challenge just your life right now, because we all get stuck in the route. It's easy to just do the same thing every day. But is something you would say, Justin, if you could leave the listener with just one piece of advice? What is something that you would want to share?
Yeah, I would say that, you don't have to be everything to everybody. And, the actions that you choose on a day to day basis determine your future. The things you did in your past don't really matter. And thinking about the future all the time doesn't really matter. It's the present moments that matter. And we talked about being multifaceted. I believe that when you're endeavoring to be a whole person, and whatever that looks like for you, if you seek wholeness and you pick whatever lane that you want to go into, you don't have to make that your entire identity. But finding ways to be creative in whatever that endeavor is, rather than just being a consumer, is going to go a long way. It's going to make your bodybuilding better. It's going to make your health better. It's going to take better care of your soul as a person. And if you just think about that and infuse that into your actions and say, hey, is this leading me towards a path of wholeness, this thing that I'm doing, or am I doing this for someone else? That is a good barometer to carry. So that's kind of like a guiding principle I would want people to take away from this.
I love that. Feed your soul, take
Mhm.
care of you. I am going to link Justin's Instagram, his coaching page, and his book below. So if anyone wants to get in touch with him, Justin, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know it was the middle of a regular work day and a Monday for you, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. Thanks, Chrissy. It was fun, and look forward to following you guys on Instagram, seeing the Kiwi videos, and staying in touch.
All right.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right.